Good evening, everybody. And I'm pleased to announce that this is number 3 of a series of Substacks, as announced earlier last week, where I'm hoping to bring newer faces to the picture. Really, I make an exception tonight with Harry Fisher, who is a paramedic who resides in Oklahoma in America. And we kind of got to know each other because we've got friends in common, shall we say, in terms of the trolls, the trolls of the internet, and we've kind of battled them together. And I think they're quite upset about us having this conversation tonight. So let's make it a good one. So with no further ado, really, I just want to introduce Harry Fisher. He was an EMT, which is kind of the stage before paramedic, and he qualified. He's been doing that since 1997. And he's been a paramedic, fully fledged, highly skilled, may I add, since 2012. We were just talking before we recorded about the things that this man can do. You know, he's not just like an ambulance driver, like they call them in the UK. It's a bit disrespectful, but this man can do all the life-saving things that are needed. So no further ado, Harry, welcome to the third Substack of Breaking the Silence. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me on. There's so many funny things in everything you just said there. Like it's because that is one of the biggest pet peeves whenever we get called ambulance driver, because it's like something that people half the time we just have to like bite our tongues, because it's just one of those common things is what they call us. But I haven't driven an ambulance in years because I have to be in the back, because our laws, our rules say the EMT drives and the paramedic is in the back taking care of the patient. But when they call me an ambulance driver, it's like, oh, I went to way too much school, bro. Like there's just so much
It's
school.
irritating. I mean, from my perspective, Harry, when I was a doctor, if there's a cardiac arrest, you know, the paramedics come in, they're pumping the chest, they're telling me what to do, where it should be the other way around. You're telling me that you need to give that drug at that time while we're wet behind the ears, junior members of staff. So highly skilled. So I'm going to back you on that. This use of ambulance drivers, disgusting. But
I appreciate
what I want to do to start with, Harry, is sort of take you right back to your training, because your career spanned quite a long time. I don't mean that disrespectfully. So let's take it
me old.
into
You can call me old. It's fine.
pre-COVID era and after COVID era. How is the health service in America? I mean, it's a very different system for starters, but have you seen a change? And I'm not going to load that question. Pre-COVID specifically, have you seen a change in standards, safety, you know, ethics, etc., from the beginning of your career since qualification to pre-COVID, just specifically pre-COVID?
All the above. I mean, it's been a night and day drastic type change. I mean, pre-COVID, I wasn't seeing young strokes, young heart attacks, all of the things that literally came right after the rollout of these shots. You would have had to have been deaf, blind, and dumb to not see the drastic difference from when they started giving the shots. Like it was just so obvious. And during COVID, we were actually really slow. Like during COVID, our ambulance services, I was working in a really large city, and we were just having some chill time because people were locked in their homes. They weren't really locked in, but they were in Oklahoma. They were just deciding to stay in because the CNN was going, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. But you didn't actually, no one was monitoring you. You could come out anytime you want. Where I live, there wasn't like one of those like check you and see if you're supposed to be out thing. But most people were so afraid because the news was telling them to be afraid. So with them staying in, with them keeping their kids in, we weren't seeing all the traumas. We weren't seeing all the extra stuff. People weren't calling for their toe pains, because I would say 80% of the time, 80% of the time at the very least, an EMT basic can run most of the emergency calls that happen all the time. Like I'm going to go to work tomorrow, I'll be on a 48-hour shift. 80% of my calls, you know, where I'm at, actually put more like 75%, because I'm out where if you call, it's pretty bad. So say 75% of the calls could be an EMT basic that's running the call, meaning someone's saying their abdomen hurts or they've got flu-like symptoms and want to go to the hospital, just a very basic call. Whenever a paramedic is needed is whenever they've got something lodged in their airway and I've got to actually cut a hole in your throat and put something in. That's called advanced life support. I would say very few calls need my advanced life support. It's just, that being said, whenever crap hits the fan, crap hits the fan. Well, that kind of stuff wasn't really happening during COVID. During COVID, it wasn't that bad. It just wasn't. We were seeing some weird stuff like happy hypoxia, and someday we need to have a conversation about happy hypoxia or silent hypoxia because that'll blow some people's minds. But that still wasn't. It wasn't. That they didn't even need advanced life support. Those people
Just for
were.
the viewers, though, Harry, what do you mean by that? I know what you mean by that, but for people who aren't medical, happy hypoxia, what do you mean by that?
What we were seeing during COVID is how I knew you had COVID during COVID is whenever I had a patient who was speaking like I am right now. They weren't turning blue. They had no cyanosis is what we call it. They weren't cyanotic. They weren't turning blue. They looked normal. Their lung sounds weren't actually bad, and they were just talking. And their SATs. If you ever go to a hospital and you put they put the little thing on your finger. It's a pulse oximetry. When they put that on your finger, we were seeing SATs in the 40s and 50s. Made no sense. Like at the start, I was going, my monitor is broken. My monitor is broken. These people are talking, my monitor is broken. But it was getting good pleth. Pleth is a waveform that we're seeing on our monitor that tells us that it actually is working properly. So I was getting good pleth and people with 40 and 50% SATs. For someone like me and Doc, who's been doing this a long time, that's like, what's going on? It's like Twilight Zone stuff. It doesn't make sense. And then when we would do ABGs in the ER, it would match. These people were actually satting extremely low, like ungodly low, like zombie level low. We used to actually in my medic group when we were talking, did you run a zombie patient today during COVID? Yeah, I ran a zombie patient. Like we were having those kind of conversations because we didn't know what was going on.
So
So
from the outset, Harry, you've obviously, I mean, we all get kind of broad brushstroke. You know, once you start speaking out against the jab, you become conspiracy theorist, you become a tin hat wearer, you become a COVID denier. So what you're saying here is, again, and I was always working in primary care, which was making phone calls to people, and you were getting them to count backwards from 30, called the Roth score, to guess what their sats were, and send them in if they failed that. You know, you'd presume their sats are 90 or below if they couldn't count backwards from 30 on a breath. That's how
right.
kind of we went right back to basics in its phone calls. But I never got into the ERs. I was at sort of, like I say, in very empty primary cares. Like you say, that the usual footfall that you would see wasn't coming in. We weren't getting the petty stuff, the time wasters and the heart sinks stayed at home because they were petrified. And
Yeah.
we were seeing if they were sick, they were sick. But yeah, so you sound like you've seen lots of this happy hypoxia, as you call it, people with desaturating whilst using their phone, and you hear stories of that. But when did you start becoming suspicious of the whole thing? I mean, were you seeing the ventilatory? You know, what we were seeing in the UK were premature ventilations, preemptive ventilations in people with patent airways. You know, it's just didn't make sense
Yeah.
to me that they were preemptively. But what's your experience of that?
Well, I've had a lot of time to actually reflect on all the things that I've experienced because I've worked from Oklahoma City all the way to New York City. I've worked in ICUs, ERs, and ambulance, so I've got to see the before, after, and then the ICU portion. So I've got to see the whole thing play out like in real time, straight on the front lines. I'm not a COVID denier. There was something very strange that hit the public that I've never seen before in my entire life. And most of the people would actually call with anxiety. They would call because they were experiencing some anxiety. We would see some really low saturations. And then when we would get you to the hospital, I would put you on like 2 liters nasal cannula, and your stats would actually start to come up. But it didn't do that great for them because I mean they said they felt better, but their anxiety actually sort of peaked a little more with the oxygen. So I'm not sure if it was good or bad because they were compensating so well. Like these people were compensating really well at very low saturations. So for anybody listening out there, to layman's terms, your body has this natural compensation. We compensate for things. Like if you're sick, you're going to compensate with like a fever, or you know what I mean? Your body's going to just compensate and try to figure out how to regulate itself. Well, these people were regulating perfect, and we would intervene, and the interventions tend to be worse for the person actually. And when I was in the ICUs in New York City, I would try to tell my patients, hey, the ones that were like happy hypoxic, just relax on the oxygen. The doctors are going to come in. They're going to try to give you anxiety meds. When you take the anxiety meds, you'll get worse. And then if you get worse, they're going to have you sign off on a piece of paper trying to intubate you. And when they intubate you, it'll kill you. You're going to die if you do that. I was blunt because I was watching one after another do exactly that. They would come in, they would sign off, and they would take anxiety meds. And then when you take anxiety meds, it starts to actually make you crump when you're in that phase because it lowers your respirations. It makes it more difficult to breathe. They're already compensating fine. Why do you want to throw, a benzo or whatever else you're going to throw at them on top of whatever's going on? Because nobody, no doctor I talked to knew why the hell these people were actually satting like this and able to talk like this. I had one doctor say, Harry, if anybody tells you they know what this is, they're full of shit. That's a quote from a doctor in an ER. That being said, why are we throwing medications at someone who looks normal, acts normal? Because old school medic teaching, my old school hippie paramedic instructor way back when, he was such a hippie, but he always would tell me, Harry, you don't treat the monitor, you treat the patient.
Yeah.
You treat the patient. And what a lot of these doctors, these younger doctors especially, what they'll do is they'll treat their monitors, they'll treat their diagnostic. They won't actually treat the patient. And what they were doing, in my opinion, was just overloading people with things they didn't need and killing a whole lot of people.
Was there any discussions at that time about potential treatments? I know looking back at it, there was talk about, vitamin D. The studies show vitamin D, things like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, basic things, vitamins,
You
magnesium.
weren't allowed to, like, that was a taboo conversation. You think you're wearing a tinfoil hat? Talk about natural immunity back then. I mean, back then, if you just mentioned the words natural immunity,
Well, we saw that with the
people were
jabs.
just
When the jabs rolled out, they were giving them to people recently recovered. I mean, if you've just had flu, you don't need the flu jab for that year, for example.
yeah.
It's basic immunology, and the doctors, like you say, it was a no-go zone. You couldn't talk about treatment, and we know why that is now because the vaccines were issued under an emergency use authorization, i.e., a cutting corner policy, whereby all of the usual antics around bringing a vaccine to market can be rushed, sped through, because emergency use just means that there is no treatment available, new or repurposed, that will allow the rigorous testing of a vaccine properly through clinical trials through to phase 4. It takes about 10 years, as you know, to get a vaccine out to market. Moderna, even, I don't know if you had Moderna in America, but that they've never been involved in the vaccine industry. Suddenly, out of nowhere, they're pumping out billions of vials of this stuff. And so you had this experience, like you said, you're seeing these silent hypoxies, you've had access to the ITUs. Would you say people were prematurely vented and there was a lot of iatrogenic
Yes,
damage?
100%. 100%. I would say if you're actually looking at me and talking to me about your puppies, which I'm talking about, a certain individual that was talking to me about their dogs and having a da da da, and then they decided to vent that person, and then they died within a day. I mean, because if you look up over oxygenation, if you're over oxygenating someone who's compensating perfectly and actually their organs are doing just fine on it, then you're going to start having organ failure. And a lot of these people were dying of systematic organ failure. That's just one of the things. Now, I can't prove that it's because of the vent, but I can tell you they would get vented and they would die one after another when they were actually doing just fine without all that unnecessary stuff. And it was brutal to witness. It was actually very, very tough,
I
and
guess
it's
the
tough now to
headline that
explain.
you were hearing amongst the staff that are less, let's say, less awakened, less aware, critically thinking, were probably thinking that's the rapidity of the COVID virus
Yeah,
racing through the body, multi-organ failure. We were told by the BBC in the UK that this was, ARDS, a cytokine
yeah,
storm,
going hard.
or it was disseminated intravascular coagulation, that this virus had triggered this cascade of clotting activity. And that's what we were told. Like I say, I wasn't in that arena to be able to corroborate, but it's interesting to see that
And
you saw.
and I would tell them, look at the places. Look, it's really simple to actually. It's actually super simple. Look at the places that people don't go to hospitals regularly and see how they fared. If you didn't go to the hospital, you fared better. Look at Africa; they fared better. Like, I look at the places that didn't have access to the ICU units and the ERs and stuff. They actually did better. And what really makes me happy, that most people probably won't get, is we don't typically, because a lot of us paramedics, I mean, because it costs extra for baby pulse oxes because our pulse oximeters won't work on baby fingers. Thankfully, predominantly, we just look at baby. Is baby crying properly? Is baby turning colors? Is baby air movement proper? We don't typically use our monitors to register for babies, so I'm thankful for that because I can't imagine if we would have had pulse oxes on babies at the time. So thankfully, a lot of babies, for those that are listening and understand, I'm glad that our technology is a little bit behind and people had to actually use their brain to see if baby was okay. Because can you imagine if we were using monitors for them?
Yeah, we'll talk about the rollout now. So I'm just going to talk about your personal experience. So how were you offered the jab yourself? I presume you didn't take it,
No,
but
I didn't take it.
were you offered it, and what was there any sort of coercion around that? I know we had the travel bans, etc., but was your job at risk for not having it? What were they telling
Immense.
you about this injection?
It was immense. They certainly offered it, and at the time they started offering it to me, and they'd been offering it to me. I got a 911 call too. You remember those? This is what really pisses off the Shields a whole lot whenever I talk about it because it just makes them mad. But either way, I was working big 911 service. I got a call to a Pfizer line is what I call it. I call them Pfizer lines because I don't know what else to call those makeshift weird clinics that they were setting up to give this stuff to people. Like that's not happened ever in my lifetime, so I didn't know what to call it. Like a vaccine line, whatever, this weird substance that they want to throw in people that they're telling me I need to take at some point for this thing that they're all scared of that I've been working through. So imagine I've been working through it. I'm constantly around it. I'm constantly doing this stuff. And now they're saying, you have to take this miracle drug. And I'm like, I really don't want to take the miracle drug, but if I have to, I might. I'm not sure. And then I get a 911 call to one of the places that's giving this miracle drug and the lady dies. She took it, boom, died. Lethal arrhythmia. She didn't die of an allergic reaction. There was no I've seen allergic reactions, so have you. You know what an allergic reaction looks like. This lady went into a lethal arrhythmia. I shocked her multiple times. I went through all of my code protocols, all the epi, all the everything. I could not save. And she wasn't old. She wasn't an old person. Got her shot
And what
and
was the
died
time frame between the jab going in the arm and this collapse arrhythmia?
within 5-10 minutes. Like went into a lethal arrhythmia. Like within, I mean, because they go to that little waiting section, but this waiting section was right beside where they imagine the tables up front, this long ass line, and then this waiting section like beside where they're giving it, and and she just died. And they called me, and then we were working, me and fire department, we were working this patient because when fire department's there doing CPR, they're calling me. I get there, I take over the scene, and I start working the code, and then it's my patient. And then the nurse comes over because I just intubated, shocked, shocked, shocked. And then the nurse comes over and goes, "This is the second one in 2 weeks." And my piece of me was like, because you want to register that, but you're busy. Like, you know what I mean? You're a doctor, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, you're busy. I'm working a code, but it's still just like click, click, second one in 2 weeks. I even put it in my report just because it was so crazy. That being said, I also remember looking over my shoulder and seeing this long ass line of people watching and standing there waiting for theirs.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what in the world is going on? Like there was that, it was just so surreal. Like this is crazy. Because if you've ever seen a code is the most controlled, chaotic experience, especially when you're doing it on a floor. I mean, any doctor out there, any nurse out there, imagine being in front of hundreds of people, literally doing the innovating, literally doing the shocking, literally running a code that you run in your ERs while all these people are watching, and then taking all this shit into your brain like second one in 2 weeks, weird ass shot line, what's going on? And then leaving with the patient, and then sadly watching the patient expire in the ED because nothing could be done.
And this was while they were trying to get you to have it yourself. You were being called out to these 911, collapses in the Pfizer line.
That's while they were going, Harry, you really need to take this. And then I wouldn't. And I actually went to contracts after that, worked all over the place. And then when they really did the final push, I had already seen way more than enough when they did because they tried to like push sort of, push harder, push really hard. And then they said, you have to take this or you're not going to be able to work anymore. And by that time, I was working a contract. I'd already gotten a religious exemption. And my religious exemption by that time literally said, all I wrote was, due to the fact that I've done CPR, and if I got it memorized. Due to the fact that I've done CPR and a Pfizer line, I cannot in good conscience put this substance into my body. Give to Caesar what is Caesar, give to God what is God's. This temple belongs to God, period. And they approved that, but then they let me go. They said, okay, here's your approval, but bye now, we don't need you anymore. So and then I was out of work for about 2 months, and then they started having such a shortage of people, they needed more people. So they hired me back, and I've been working. And then recently I got fired again 2 months ago. Really high paying job, been working it for the last couple of years. But they found my online presence, and one of those crew people got on and were like, Harry's terrible. And then I got a call while I was in like the tundra. I was literally up in Alaska in the tundra. They had no one to replace me. And I got a call and they were like, sorry, due to your online presence, we're going to have to let you go. And then security came and got me and escorted me to the nearest airport airstrip. And they loaded me on a plane and sent me out because of my online presence.
And is that all they'd called it, online presence? There was no, because I get a lot of complaints about me spreading misinformation online, but they never proffer any specifics. I get called an anti-vaxxer.
They even gave me they even gave me a good reference. Like, sad. What's weird about it is like my email that they sent was, "Thank you so much for all your years of service. Here's your last letter of separation." They called it separation, not termination. Here's your separation letter, and thank you so much for all your years of service.
Just thank you very much for. I mean, this is what they do. They just throw you on the scrap heap, don't they? And you know, you're a father, I'm a father. It has implications on our family. This what's it, blacklisting, really, isn't it? Blacklisting and cancel culture for your non-specific online presence. They're not bringing any specific breaches of any specific guideline to you, just that you're an anti-vaxxer in their opinion.
Yeah, and that was 3 weeks. They did that 3 weeks after, because they sent me the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines, because I was working up in the tundra. I was working this clinic setting, and I also had an ambulance because I had this really large coverage area. I was the only paramedic there in my large area in the tundra. And they sent me these shots, and my medical director was like, Harry, we're going to need you to give COVID shots if people want them. And I said, hey, let me pray about it for a night. And I put it online. I even put it on X. I was like, should I give these? I really don't feel right about it. I don't want to poison people, but if I can give like full real consent on how it can harm you, and they still want it, and then people were just telling me what they thought. And then the next morning I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do it. And then I told my medical director that I can't do it. And then 3 weeks after, they actually came at me with your online presence, blah, blah, blah. So I think it was a combination between I wouldn't give the shots and my online presence. But here's a real kicker for you. It'll blow your mind. My own medical director said, Harry, you just can't be very vocal about this kind of stuff. And honestly, I've got a vaccine injury too, and I can't tell people about it. My medical director had a vaccine injury.
How do you explain that, though, Harry? I mean, we're not going to deny the fact that this is a beautiful crime against humanity. You know, this goes right the way to the top. And there's been lots of psychological warfare, hasn't there? There's been in the UK Nudge Unit, Spy B, Behavioural Insights Team, and it's been a military grade operation to scare the living daylights out of people, to misrepresent what's going on in the ERs. Because my experience of ERs, they were empty. I was delivering pizzas to ERs, they were empty. They were doing TikTok dancing and all the rest of it. Just again, even if there were sick people dying upstairs, it's just uncouth to be dancing and prancing downstairs in these choreographed things. But yeah, it's just, how do you explain this still now in 2025, we're still hearing safe and effective. It's beyond all reasonable doubt that these things are unsafe and defective, but still they'll defend them to the hilt. How do you explain it? What do you think? Like,
it's complete abuse. I mean, it's complete abuse. I mean, these people have been completely abused, and we still have, like, you're facing what you call the is it mutton crew? Is how you call it, mutton? Like the sheep crew? Is it like the sheep crew?
Yeah,
Okay.
mutton crew. There's a long story behind that.
All right. All right. But I mean, you're facing the mutton crew. I'm facing my version of the mutton crew here in America that are constantly attacking, constantly hating,
They're the
saying the
same
worst
people,
things they
Harry.
can.
We'll come to that. They're the same people.
Same people. And they're either it's a portion of, in my opinion, from what I've seen, and just, because my job is to actually put two and two together and go, there we go, we've got four. We've got evil people that are trying to push a very money driven system, and then you have just a bunch of people that have been abused, hurt, to the point of becoming demonic, almost like these abuse. That's what abusers are to me. Abusers are really demonic people that abuse others, and that's what they are. They're very abusive. They project. They're mean. They call you a liar when they lie. They will try to gaslight you, like, you're not seeing what you're seeing right now, Dr. David Cartland. You're not seeing what you're seeing, Dr. David Cartland. You have the worst life ever. Like, they're just mean and ruthless and wrong. And that's what abusers do. So at this point, I see them for what they are. They're abusive people trying to abuse me. And I typically don't respond. Occasionally, I will, just to see if they're starting to change their mind a little bit. Like, I let one on live the other day just to see if they changed a little bit. No, same thing. Like, they're just same lies, same mean stuff. There has been no change. So either they're being paid to do it, or they're just that bought in to a system. And I can't. It's not my job to actually force people out of a broken system. My job is to, as a paramedic, try to help, try to speak as much truth as possible, constantly, and honestly get shit on for it, because that's pretty much what I do. I also get a lot of love too, though. I'm not gonna hate. I mean, I do get a lot of really awesome people that are, if it wasn't for them being just great people, caring, showing me they care, it would be very difficult to process all of what's going on. So I'm thankful for that. But that being said, there's a lot of hate, like a lot of hate. Whistleblowers nowadays aren't protected.
What would you say it's like? I mean, for people who haven't come across, well, like I say, I call them the mutton crew. They're the same people that abuse you. They bring ad hominem attacks. There's swarms of them.
Mm-hmm.
One of my previous interviews this week was a midwife who spoke out, and I kind of promoted her speaking out and identifying herself. Within an hour, the same accounts swarming her. And I've made clear to my GMC tribunal that this is happening. I'm not the harasser here. I've been harassed by hundreds and hundreds of people. I've given them all the analytics on them, same name, same accounts. They all follow each other, but they're hateful and spiteful, and there's no low that they won't stoop to. They contact surgeries that I work at. They've contacted relatives, ex-wives, etc. There's nothing that these people won't do. But the question I was going to ask: have you ever been offered a genuine debate by one of these characters? Have you been offered a publications, data? Offers of
Genuine debate where they want to just talk and be nice?
yeah,
No,
no,
no. They're ruthless. Every time I've tried to just be, let's have a conversation. No, they're ruthless. They're actually, they go for the jugular. They're always hateful. And so that's why I've learned not to do it, because it's like talking to your actual abuser, like someone. Hey, damn, I just got hit.
mm,
Do you want to have a real conversation? That they will just smack you every single time. So what you've got to realize is abusers aren't going to actually stop abusing you. I liken it to that woman that, because I tried at the start. I tried to have conversations. I tried to, like, let's figure out if we can talk. But then I started to realize, no, they have an agenda. Agenda people, agenda abusers literally will come at you, and use anything. If you put a period wrong, they'll be like, your period was here when it should have been there, and da 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 da. And so
yeah,
they're just looking for any reason to attack you. And I liken it to the patients that I run, because I run these patients that have been beat to crap by their husbands. And they'll typically, it's by their husbands. And they're like, but he loves me. He loves me. Like, their faces are all jacked. And I'm sitting there going, please report him, please leave him, please don't go back. Well, guess what? I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to keep talking to these people. I'm not going to feed your system. I know what I've seen. You can't gaslight me to believe I haven't. I've written a book about it, for goodness sake. Like, I never wanted to write a book. I'm a paramedic, not a
mm,
writer. Didn't want to write a book. Not a thing that would have been in my life story. But guess what? I've had to write a book because they're killing our people. And it hurts me to watch all this occur. And it also hurts whenever I go on and see
Mm.
prominent doctors. Prominent doctors go, "Where is Harry Fisher? Where does he work? Let's get him fired." And it gets a million views. It's like, dude, you just tried to dox me openly and get me fired. Like, if I did that to any of these people, I'd go to jail. Like, if I said, "Where do these people work? Let's get them fired," I'd be screwed.
Well,
But for
Twitter will
some
have you. I
reason,
mean,
they
that's the
can do
thing.
that.
There's a layer of protection around them on X because they're predominantly on X. I don't get the same stuff on Insta or Facebook or any other socials. And I've had an email sent to the GMC by one of these characters, the name redacted, obviously, so the GMC know who they are, and said essentially that these are a group of scientists and doctors. And many links to pharma. I won't go into it. They say they're a group of scientists and doctors tasked with the job of keeping misinformation off the X platform. Specifically states that. Then it makes a derogatory comment about me, and then says, "And that's why you became a target of our group." So openly admitting that they're pharmaceutically aligned networks of doctors, and the GMC
Yeah.
have this, and they see that this, I am actually being harassed rather than being the proponent of harassment, which is what the charge is against me. Anyone who follows me on X will see the bashing I get. I see the bashing you get. You don't feed the trolls. I do respond to them. And the reason I do that is because they're the ones putting in the 237 GMC
Stop,
complaints.
stop feeding them. It's
Yeah.
pointless. It's like, I mean, honestly, don't feed them. It actually pisses them off more if you don't feed them. If you ignore them, it makes them really mad. Which is what abusers really get mad. Narcissists really get pissed off when you don't actually talk to the narcissist.
Yeah.
So don't talk to them. It's pointless. They're
I've
mean.
tried it,
They're
Harry.
ruthless.
I've tried it, but unfortunately, they get even darker. They're contacting other friends of mine and putting pictures of my wife on Telegram groups saying, and where they find the pictures, I don't know because we've had to digitally
Send it to me
separate, as it
too.
were. So anyway, forget the trolls. We're feeding them by even talking about them. So let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go right back. So you've been to multiple of these emergencies, people collapsing, the rest of the sheeple not
Yeah.
responding, waiting for their go, even though there's people dropping down. Is anyone twigging it? Are you alone in your concerns? Are your colleagues whispering to each other? There's something
100%.
about these.
100%. I would say most of the people now know that the shots. I don't know anyone still getting these shots. Like no paramedic is still out there going that I know personally. That I've been around, which I've been around a lot. They're not out there going, "I'm rolling up my sleeve now. Let's do this." Like that's not happening. Many paramedics have heart problems now. Some of my friends have already died. Some of them, a lot of them have committed suicide. It's been really really bad. That being said, no one's taking these shots anymore. They won't talk about it though because they also see, man, Harry really gets shit on. Harry's already lost that really good paying job. Harry, like it's a don't ask, don't tell policy in a time when you're supposed to be able to talk about things. So no, it really is so quiet. But I still talk. I don't talk as much now because it's just like the other day I was riding with my partner, my EMT, my EMT partner was driving the other day, and I was like, "Why'd you take the shot?" And he was like, "Well, Harry, I mean, I don't really give a shit if it kills me, and I wanted to keep my job, and also, I just don't give a fuck." Quote. That's a quote. Sorry, but that's a quote. And I was like, "So you're not worried about it killing you?" "No, not really." So a lot of people are like that, especially the young generation. The young generation just doesn't.
Just
They don't give a
unpicking
shit.
that, they're obviously taking the shot because they're scared of dying of COVID. Yeah, having
He wasn't scared of dying of COVID. He just wanted to keep his job, and he also didn't. He didn't care. He actually sort of knew the shots were probably going to kill him, but he didn't care because it's like a young person doing some really bad drug, thinking, "Why not?" Like a lot of these, there's a lot of different types of people out there, and a lot of these people just like whatever. That was yesterday. Don't care. They don't look at the bigger picture. They don't look at how bad it is. So we're dealing with a whole lot of programming. And then also when you take true spirituality away from people, which is the generation nowadays, when you take God out of the equation, what do they really have to lose? What do they really have to fight for? What do they have to stand for? Like a lot of these people have nothing to stand for. They have no principles, like zero principles. So do you think they're going to have ethics?
Exactly. I call it the 2 Timothy 3 generation. This is what we're seeing now with the younger generation, like you say, moralless, soulless, pointless. I get a lot of depressed and anxious people come through in primary care. And first thing I say to them, take me through a day. Take me through a day from the moment you wake up to the end. And often it involves phone, tablets, tech, no socialization, no exercise, and soulless living, really. No breathing the air or connecting physically with friends. It is very sad. I
Yeah.
wanted to take you just back to the ERs, what were you seeing? So the jabs going in arms. Just rolled out the first one. When was your eureka moment? I know you were going to these Pfizer lines as you mentioned, but
Mhm.
what were you seeing upticks in, and was it blatant in your opinion that these inflection points came after the jab and not before?
So blatant, in fact, that I went to one contract not long after the Pfizer line. Da da da. I'm working this contract, and we had like just so many deaths. Like they did a Pfizer push on this native reservation, and they because the native reservations they actually did it really hard. They were like, "You got to do this. We're doing it. We're all doing it," and they did like this really big push. And within weeks, it was just one person dropping dead after another. It was like that drastic. Like, here's how drastic it was, and I've tried to like put this into where people can understand. Imagine working in an ER, and you're a paramedic working in an ER that has an ambulance. You know, it's the old school like ambulance ER tied together system. Where the bay is like literally attached to the hospital. So what they do with us paramedics is we work in the ER, like doing like nurse work and paramedic work. Because a nurse during a code, we paramedics can do a lot of stuff that nurses can't, you know, and we will, especially if the doctor's busy and da da da. So we were having such a bad time that our nurse manager dropped from multiple PEs. We had to intubate our nurse manager. We had already been having people dying over the last few days, and just more people, more patients than this hospital has ever seen. And then one of the nurses was literally tearing up, and she had been there for like 30 years. And while I'm standing there after we're shipping this lady off, we're actually flying this person out to another hospital that's capable after we intubated one of our staff members. The nurse was sort of tearing up, and she was like, "My husband just died of a heart attack. He just took his shot." Because I've been very vocal. So, I mean, so they knew they could talk to me. Like they knew because I was being very vocal at the time. And she was like, "My husband just took his shot. He died a day after he took his shot of a cardiac arrest. And then his brother died a week after. It's been 2 weeks. I've lost two people in my family, and they want me to take this shot. I don't know what to do." And I was like, "Don't take the shot." And she was like, "I'm not going to. I'm retiring." So they lost a 30-year nurse. And then after she lost her husband and her husband's brother, and then our nurse manager got intubated. And then my ER doctor at that same place pulled me aside and said, "Harry, we're experiencing genocide." It's a quote inside an ER to a paramedic that's already seen a lot of death. I
Can
have
I ask?
lived that life.
Can I ask, Harry? Is that doctor who whispered that in your ear? Has he been public, or she?
She no, and she literally she moved. She quit. She'd already been doing it for almost 30 years in that community, 35 years actually, that doctor. And she had her own ranch, and if she's not dead now, which I still don't communicate with her anymore, but her goal was to me was I'm leaving, I'm going to my ranch, and I'm going to batten up the hatches, is what she said. Batten up the hatches.
And this
She
is
saw the big demon coming.
this is what we're seeing. We're seeing people running rather than face it, because you've got this kind of dichotomy of positions, as you talked about earlier. You've got this kind of financial entrapment people have got. You earn a certain amount, you've got pension, your reputation, your lifestyle, everything, versus speaking out will risk all of that. But
Yeah.
you're doing the right thing. You're doing what I've just written a substack on it about the duty of candor, which is owning up when mistakes are made, calling it out. The thought that they're still giving this out in 2025, even I've met people who've had 7 or 8. It's all very odd how people can still. I call it ostrich syndrome. Everyone's just got their heads in the sand. They're just hoping it goes away. We all move on. Quick look over there, it's Ukraine. Quick look over there, it's the election. Distraction tactics. But the numbers are the numbers. Harry, you saw them in the ERs, this sudden uptick in all these catastrophic clots and myocarditis, I'm sure, and heart attacks in youngsters, strokes in youngsters. I saw that, and I worked 2 days a week as a GP in middle England, like middle of nowhere, down in the southwest of England. You're in a busy hospital, and you're seeing the same inflection points for a
Yes.
multitude of comorbidities and mortalities, and no
Yes.
one's talking about it. I mean, even in the coffee room, were you getting any exchanges from
Yeah,
anti-vaxxers?
you do, you will. It's not really anti. Everyone's an anti-vaxxer now. Like it's no one's taking the shots anymore. Like I would say most of the people would be considered anti-vaxxers now because no one's getting their boosters. So they're all anti-vaxxers at this point. It's just some of us are vocal about reality. It's anti-vaxxer is just a term like conspiracy theorists. It's something that the establishment literally tried to utilize to mark people that could see outside of the box or that would stand outside of the box. A lot of people could see outside of it. Not a lot of people would take a stand. So they have to use terms to actually mark us and belittle us and be rude to us. I had a friend working at the NIH that was sending me the paperwork. Like a friend of mine, while I was trying to fight, while I was trying to be vocal on TikTok, getting banned on TikTok, been through like 70 accounts on TikTok trying to be vocal. I made a friend that works at the NIH that was sending me information going, here's what we're supposed to say to you. Here's the information on what we're supposed to call you. We're supposed to literally, some of it was like, we need to peer pressure people into taking the shots. Like they were giving out memos to literally torture anyone that was standing against the system, which in their mind, which thankfully there's some people at the NIH that was going, this is crazy. I can't believe they want us to be mean to you. I can't believe they want to take away your right to speak. I can't believe they want to actually peer pressure you. Bully. They wanted to bully us into submission. That's wrong. Like that is like, let's say I'm wrong. I've even stood, like I've tried to do the whole, am I crazy? It could be me that's crazy. Okay, well, if I'm crazy, then why are they beating me up? Why are they being trashing on me? Why am I not on their pages trying to trash on them? I don't go on their pages. I don't go to anyone else's social media and try to trash on them and be rude. Why are they constantly on mine? So I've done the whole reverse, try to figure out and be empathetic thing. But what I've come to is we're up against a system that wants to protect itself, wants to make as much money as possible, and wants to cover up a whole lot of death because I'm seeing the death. And whenever I go back to work tomorrow, I'm going to see more.
Yeah. I mean, are you seeing in exchanges with your colleagues, the ones that are refusing more shots or anything, are they exchanging data with you? Are they reading what you show them, or do they just know now because the numbers are just so?
Most of my colleagues that I'm aware of, I mean, there's a few that follow me on X and da 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 da, but for the most part, no, most of them don't. It's like well, it's like most. Here, am I allowed to smoke on this? Can I smoke?
Yeah, carry on, carry on.
It's like smokers.
Yeah.
Most of them don't want to know the cancer rates. They just want their cigarette. That being said, I know this shit will kill me. I know it's bad. I mean, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. I know it can really kill me though. But it's choice. It's not mandated. And you're not trying to force feed it into my children. And when my kids aren't here, you know what I don't do? I don't smoke around my children. I'll actually dip. So I know where the poisons are. I know that our world tries to offer us a lot of poison. But in this case, they mandated poison and now they're trying to cover up the deaths.
Yeah.
That's what really annoys me. It, you know what? mRNA technology, I want it gone. But at the same time, if they would just come out and go, hey, guess what? This technology is really terrible in a lot of ways. It's going to probably cause long-term cancer until we perfect it. It could do a whole lot of really cool stuff when we perfect it. And most of it's going to be given to the elite people because most of you peasants really don't mean anything. Should be obvious to you at this point. But if you want to go ahead and take this product and insist to do it, go ahead. But we're not going to give it to children. We're not going to mandate it on you. And we're going to ensure that it doesn't shed because I want to make sure that the technology is not going to cross over from person to person because we are talking about a really wild technology that hasn't been studied good enough by all of us, well enough by all of us. So there's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And that would be my concern. But hey, if it didn't actually cross over, if you couldn't get it from sexual partners, If it just kills the person that's taking it and you're not forcing it on, actually, you're not giving it to children. You shouldn't give anything. You shouldn't give a cigarette to a kid. You shouldn't give something that's going to kill a kid to a kid. But
Yeah.
other than that, do you. Like I am not against people being themselves and doing their thing. I'm against you forcing me to do it. And I'm against you forcing it on our children.
And it's a very basic concept of informed consent. There's the information bit of the consent, and then there's the coercion. If you coerce anyone into anything, you've not given them open and free consent. So this whole "you can't travel, you're going to get sacked," that's coercion. That invalidates informed consent.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there's so many ethical principles that we're messed around with. So can I ask a few sort of quick fire questions? Have you had any problems with the regulator? I know you've lost jobs and stuff, but we've got the HCPC that look after paramedics in this country. Have you got a regulator that's been
What do
firing?
you mean regular? I don't understand. I don't understand regulator.
We
I
have
don't. I don't.
above us as doctors, we have the General Medical Council. Nurses have the Nursing Medical Council. Paramedics have HCPC. They're kind of
Oh no, no, no.
watching over you.
We have the National Registry of Paramedics, which the trolls have tried to like call them and bombard them with getting me off the roster. And one of the trolls, thankfully, actually posted because they were like, I called and we all called and they got hundreds of calls about Harry, and they posted the email that that the National Registry said. And thankfully, in America, the National Registry said. Um, Harry has free speech. This is America. He's allowed to speak if he wants to. You can contact his employer if you think he's done something against the law. But other than that, leave us alone. So thankfully, my national registry has had my back to this day on letting me speak and be honest. So I don't have like a regulator mount up over my shoulder. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a whole long list of people. I'm nearly the last man standing with the General Medical Council. Every other COVID dissenter has been completely stripped of their careers. These are family men and women, wonderful people. I know most, I won't name names here, but wonderful people with exemplary careers. They spoke out about COVID. And like you say, you've got your constitutional right protected under American, citizenship, whereas we've got nothing. I mean, the GMC told me the Human Rights Act doesn't apply to me, literally. So this is what's interesting about what's going on here. Just wanted to changing the subject in terms of awakening. Now we've kind of talked about doctors not rolling up the sleeve, and I think the UK data suggests I think the booster. I think 80% of people, give or take, refused the third in the UK. This is NHS staff across the different professions. Public, what's the public feeling in Oklahoma? Do you feel the public are awakening to this?
Yeah, yes. Most of like I was with a patient the other day that literally told me that their daughter talked them into. I made a post about it on X. That their daughter told them that they should take the shot. Their daughter was like a nurse, and now her and her daughter both know that the shot is actually what's killing the patient. Um, so yes, most people are aware that it was a really dumb idea to take. They just don't know what to do about it, or it's one of those just conversations that's hard to have with people because a lot of them are already dying, or they had already lost loved ones, or they're scared about the fact that it's going to kill them. So it's one of those conversations that's just really hard to have. I still try to have it a lot more than most, just to keep it fresh on people's minds. Because if we don't, then in my mind, you know, we're letting a pedophile get away with harming children because I see it sort of the same way. I mean, this beast of a system just molested our entire population, and and if we don't talk about it, then it's going to do it again and again and again and again. But yes, to answer your question, I would say most that I talk to are well aware that the shots were a really bad idea, but they don't know what to do about it.
Was gonna say, where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? I mean, in the UK, I mean, the chance conversations I have with people in where I live in my village, or just one-on-ones when anyone.
Hard to be outraged when you have CHF. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's hard to be super angry when your heart ain't working right. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
and then the hearts are working right. They have jobs to take care of the ones that hearts aren't working right. So Like we have a very sick population now, force fed sickness, and then people out there trying to buy products and just survive and doing what I do. A lot of them just aren't willing to do it. Doing what you do, a lot of them aren't willing to do it because they're not stupid. They'll try to take your job. They'll try to make your life harder. I mean, I've taken a huge pay cut and I've got bills to pay. I've got things to take care of. And honestly, if it wasn't for my Irish stubbornness, I probably would have shut up a long time ago. God and my Irish stubbornness. I don't know which one's got it the most, but
It's an
either way.
unusual thing though, Harry, because you and I both get called a grifter. Yet I've lost 120,000 a year job and earning pennies now, like literally probably about 15% or 10% of what I used to earn. You've lost jobs that were lucrative to do what you're doing, to speak out. So I don't know what this accusation of grifting, which basically means petty swindler,
It's
making money
it
out of people's
it's how
companies.
it's how they justify. It's actually a part of it's a part of their whole routine. It's a shtick they're doing. I mean, they're trying to get you to shut up in any way they possibly can. So to call us a grifter, I mean, think about it. They're not calling Pfizer a grifter. They're not calling Moderna a grifter. They're not calling all our politicians grifters. They're not actually aiming at the real grifters out there. They're aiming at people that are losing, that aren't actually making millions. I'm not living in. I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment, just trying to survive while speaking out. I've written a book, and a book's not going to make you rich unless Oprah goes, "Everyone buy the book." And trust me, Oprah's not going to do that with my book. That being said, it doesn't. It's it makes sense because that's how they try to shut you down. That's all it is a comment. It's a comment, and they are there. And if you look at I would say to anyone listening right now, look, it'll be the same anonymous people doing the same thing, almost like they're paid to do it. It's almost like they're grifting to call us grifters,
Yeah.
and that's what they do for the system. It's truly, I mean, it should be really obvious to anyone with eyes to see and ears to hear. Like we live in a world where you either have eyes to see and ears to hear or you don't. And if you don't, I don't have a whole lot of time for you. I don't want to throw pearls at you just so you can trample
I'm not quite Oprah Winfrey, Harry, but we need to take the opportunity to do a book plug here.
them.
So tell us about tell the viewers about your book, what it's called, and just a quick synopsis of what it is.
It's called Safe and Effective for Profit, an American story exposing American genocide, a paramedic story exposing American genocide. So Safe and Effective for Profit. You can find that at fishersbook.com, FISHERS book.com, fishersbook.com. You can also get it on Amazon if you like. I don't actually get, I mean, I think I get a few quarters if you buy it on Amazon. If you want to actually help me out, go to fishersbook.com. That money, some of it, like $5 from every book will go to me or something like that, maybe $4.75. So it's not like I'm going to get a crap ton of money from it, but the information in the book, it's you're living through a paramedic's eyes over the last few years during this genocide. So I would say buy the book and give it to a family member that's on the fence. Anybody, and you're going to be reading my journal. You're going to be reading poetry I've written in the most darkest times of my life. You know, the times of a paramedic's life where my friends are committing suicide. This stuff is happening here. I'm watching the worst things happen, and you're reading just raw me putting it out there for you. I would say, I mean, I would say give it to somebody that thinks the world is over, but also I think it'll give people hope because my goal isn't to be a black pillar. It isn't to be someone to remove all hope. It's to give you just how bad it is, and also show you that God exists, that people who believe in God can persevere, that we can stand up to this system if we do it together, but we can also stand up like David did to Goliath. And you put that stone of truth in and you sling it and you don't stop. That would be my word to anyone out there.
No, brilliant. And I'll put a link as well to the book on the Substack that goes with this interview. So just to sort of wind things up a little bit now, just I asked you earlier about the public waking up. How's the media in America? I mean, we're starting to see leakages of even the most COVID cultists, BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation. Other people call it other things, but I won't go there. And you've got Daily Mail. They were massive COVID cultists. They're now producing stories about vaccine injury, question marks about things, contamination even of the valves. Is that happening over with you?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting bits and pieces, like what you're getting. Like you'll get like certain news organizations going, could it have been the vaccine? But for the most part, they're not like doing a full. They're not doing like a full story on it. They're not doing a push to actually, they're just like giving bits and pieces, and it's like a slow, I don't know, like a soft disclosure. It's like soft disclosure. We're getting soft disclosure while people are dying.
Has
So
there been any sort of palpable difference since what do you make of the, post inauguration, events? Obviously, we're all elated that, the team that's been assembled, Jay Bhattacharya, you've got Robert Kennedy Jr., Trump himself, and then the next day you see them advertising AI, mRNA based cancer treatments, and you just think, oh God, is this just part of the act? What's your view
no,
on the kind of next, how imperative is it that this team assembles and they all get accepted to their posts? And will it
they're
change?
not gonna they're not gonna stop the mRNA. It's just not gonna happen. There's trillions and trillions of dollars, and the elite can actually live a lot longer if they perfect that technology. It's not going to be stopped. Like I'm not going to fool myself into believing that they're going to stop their gene editing technology. It's not going to happen. Um, what's Can you still see me?
Yeah, I can see it. It just glitched a bit. But even now, I mean, in this country, we've got Moderna introducing their, intracardiac injection straight into the heart, mRNA for heart attacks. We had it for myocarditis as well. So, like you say, there's a multi-billion, trillion, whatever zeros on the end of it, industry that, as you mentioned, the principle of it done right, it could work, but they've raced it through and made the human race lab rats for their clinical trial, and the lab rats are all dying, unfortunately. What's your general experience of vaccine injury, the more subtle one? So we've all seen the strokes, we've all seen the heart issues, we've all seen the acute stuff. But what are you seeing in people down the line a little bit in terms of, they had their jab 12 months ago and they've not been right since, but it's kind of gradually. What are you seeing in that respect?
I mean, all kinds of things. I mean, from strokes to heart attacks, heart problems, congestive heart failure, cancers are becoming just the new normal. I mean, especially stage four, like immediate stage four cancers. A lot of people want to call it turbo cancer. I've called it turbo cancer in the past just because it's so aggressive. I mean, it's hard not to call it turbo because like some of the patients, I just had a headache 2 weeks ago and suddenly I have stage four, brain cancer. Um, I mean, I've even had patients that know that the shot caused their cancer and have talked to me, and I've tried to explain this to people, but it's like talking to a murder victim. Like,
Mhm.
imagine having a conversation with someone that knows they've been murdered by Pfizer.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're going to die in a couple weeks or a couple months, and you're telling me that Pfizer did it, and I can't even express that to the general public,
How's
without.
America looking after the injured? Are they acknowledging their existence? Like we've got the vaccine damage payment scheme in the UK. It's not fit for
No,
purpose.
there's not to get on that scheme or whatever. It's weird to call it a scheme. Actually, I always hear it whenever y'all say scheme. It's like scheme, like that just sounds so bad.
It certainly is a
But
scheme.
yeah, it is a
The
scheme.
most evil scheme.
But no, I mean, I've got multiple vaccine injured friends, and no, getting help from our government is damn near non-existent. It doesn't. They aren't getting help. They're trying to do like give send goes. They're like, hey, I need treatments. I'm not able to work anymore. And they're
Complete
trying and trying and
abandonment.
trying to survive.
Complete
No,
abandonment.
no, complete abandonment. They've been abandoned completely. They've been harmed and abandoned, and
And they
that's
did, they
that's
did the right thing when you think about it. Let's say this was safe and effective,
all the
and
right
obviously,
thing.
you know,
They thought they were doing the right thing.
thought they were doing the right thing. That's what I'm saying. So they've done a good thing for humanity in their own head, albeit it didn't make sense. But to be then cut loose by the very perpetrators. But just
And
wanted
now they're
to.
called anti-vaxxers and ridiculed and shit on, and they actually did what the system wanted them to do. So it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I'm so glad that I did.
Well, I
While I
mean,
smoked a cigarette.
this side of the pond, we've got the vaccine injured, multiple organisations. None of them are getting compensation, even small amounts. They've set the bar at 120,000, but you've got to be 60% disabled. So I know people who've lost legs that have been refused because they got another leg and two arms. But what the main thing is, and the point I was making, was the gaslighting. So I deal with a lot of vaccine injured people that come to me and say, help, help. I've been to the doctor. They've said they've done some tests, everything's normal, because they're not looking for that specific spike protein mediated pathology. It's a conspiracy theory. And so they'll do tests like for people with chest pain after the jab. They're doing the wrong tests. They're doing echoes and angiography, but they're not doing cardiac MRI. So if you don't look for it, you don't find it. But what the main thing we're finding now is a lot of these multi-systemic neurological disorders that we're seeing, again, different timelines, different parts of body. There's no rhyme or reason as to why that happens and why somebody with 8 shots is absolutely fine. I know people that have had 7 or 8, no bothers whatsoever. But what they are doing is they're being told it's all in their head, and they're being offered drugs for mental health or gaslit. You need counselling, and that's a real concern. There's one thing not acknowledging your damage and not doing your job to, but these people get sent to what they call the lung COVID clinic, convinced of the fact that their injury was due to long COVID. I had a case when I worked in a surgery in Cornwall that a lady had had 2 AstraZenecas and was treated to 2 clots, one each time after each AstraZeneca. And then they treated her for her 30th birthday to a Moderna. And the Moderna jab, she had a mini stroke, 30-year-old nurse, 30-year-old had a mini stroke. And then a week after, she'd had the full right hemiparesis from a left MCA infarct. And guess what caused the stroke? Drum rolls, please. Asymptomatic long COVID. That's your ultimate gaslight there. She believed it. The neurologist believed it. The GP believed it. I called the GP up on it, and I was never asked to work at that practice ever again because they all believed it. She never had tested positive. She never had COVID-like symptoms. And yet the stroke 1 week after a Moderna jab was from that long COVID she never knew she had. That's a sort of paints the picture of what they're doing. But anyway.
It should be really obvious to everybody, brother. I mean, it really should be obvious, and I think it is to most. So don't let yourself get caught up in the trolls or the mutton crew, because the trolls and the mutton crew are the ones that would actually say, let's mutilate children because there's 15,000 genders, where logical people are like, no, that's not true, and COVID shots are actually killing people. So the ones against us, they're just super loud, super organized, and paid to be organized. They're not the majority. So don't ever let yourself think that they're the majority. I know it's hard, especially where you're at, because they're coming after you really well. But know that it's not the majority. What we have to do now is get just as organized, and truly, I mean, they're trying to kill our children. So at some point, we're going to have to be a little bit vicious. And when I say vicious, we're going to have to be just as vicious as they are. We're going to actually have to fight their I don't like to fight their battle, but we're going to have to take some plays out of their playbook and fight back, because they're killing us. They're killing our children. They're killing us, and they're trying to take our jobs, and they're trying to hurt your life and your children. So at some point, we're going to have to actually fight back organized. And I'm hoping that is very peaceful, very legal, but I mean, I don't like watching them kill our children. So we'll see where this goes.
I'm going to have to put a warning on this Substack saying far right conservative Please do not be offended by this non-culturally appropriate.
I'm not far right and conservative. I actually the only times in my life typically I voted for Obama. I used to work for the Daily Show, Jon Stewart, as an admin on his his internet stuff. Like I am not a far right conservative. I'm just a man watching a system and a lot of people kill innocent people. And at some point you got to go, okay, I've had enough. This isn't okay. You can't do this anymore. Now, where that leads, I'm praying that enough peaceful people out there become a large enough group that we can just peacefully say no and stand up to a bully and say, you're not allowed to do this. And the bully runs away. But guess what? Sometimes you got to hit the bully in the mouth. I'm praying it doesn't come to that. But I'll tell you just like I tell my kids, hey, if a bully steps up to you on a playground and is trying to harm you and trying to harm someone else, sometimes you're going to have to hit the bully in the mouth.
Mhm.
Same thing I would tell my child. Like
Yeah.
it's just logic.
Yeah. Final question, Harry. Just as I try and keep these things to an hour, and I reckon we could talk from probably till midnight, to be honest.
Yeah.
Censorship. Censorship. I've been every platform I've been on. I've got Twitter now, and that's established. But every other platform has either permanently suspended me or heavily censors. Even putting up my website for my business, and they've removed it as spam. What's your experience of internet censorship been?
Complete, except for X. X now, since Elon's bought it. And hey, I'll say this right now, even though Elon, some of the things you do, I don't really understand, but still, I want to say thank you very much for allowing me to have some free speech on your platform. Super appreciated. It's given me a room to breathe a little bit because I've been censored from everywhere else. I can't get on my Facebook platform anymore. I can't get on X without being censored all the time, or not X, but TikTok without being censored all the time. Like I'm anytime I try to speak on any other platform, it gets deleted. I'm pretty sure Rumble would let me, but I'm not here to like do multiple platforms and I've got enough going on in my life and everything that where I'm not like trying to cross to Rumble and do that kind of stuff because I just can't keep up with it. But you can find me at X. That place still hasn't still has let me talk, and it's Harry Fisher EMTP on X, and you can find me there. Everywhere else, I'll be there for like a day, and then they'll be like, "Boom, you're gone. See you later."
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been banned for all kinds of things. Like the first time I got banned, the first video I did on TikTok was after that doctor told me that we were experiencing genocide in an ER. I went out to the ambulance bay and I just put the phone up to my face. And I said, I'm a paramedic. I did CPR on a Pfizer line. That line lost 2 patients within 2 weeks. These aren't safe. And that got like millions of views on TikTok, and just the comments were brutal. Like one comment after another, I couldn't keep up with them. If you ever had a video go viral, trying to keep up with the comments is just like too much. But I've lost my brother, I've lost my uncle, I've lost my mom, I've lost my dad, I've lost after the shot, after the shot, after the shot, after the shot, after the shot. And TikTok removed all of those comments, removed my video, and said it was for quote unquote terroristic activity. So I was called a terrorist after 2 branches of the military. I've served my country. I've served to try to preserve our freedom of speech, to preserve our rights, to preserve our life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And they called me a terrorist for trying to warn the general population about what I've seen as a paramedic.
Yeah, I had a similar story. I was holding up Pfizer and Moderna sex submissions where it says the vaccines aren't vaccines, they're immunomodulatory gene therapies, and they'll never be sanctioned for human consumption 6 months before they start putting them in the arms of humans. And I'm holding up the documents like this, poking my head out, running my finger along the page, and I put the references below. And then I went through the pregnancy data, the incidental pregnancies, because if you were pregnant, you were kicked off the trial. You weren't allowed. So to then come out and say you're safe in pregnancy to take this was
Yeah,
just a blatant lie. That's just
yeah,
how I wanted to end it, really. That obstetrics. I've had a midwife on this week that's blown the lid on some of the things around. Did you see anything
yes,
with pregnant women, babies, deaths of
yeah,
babies, etc.?
yeah. I saw 9 miscarriages in one shift. I've actually had a long. I don't know if you know. Do you know Dr. Jim Thorpe? Uh,
Yes. Yeah, I know you.
he's a really good friend. We've talked for hours and hours, and we just kick stories and stories on what we've been seeing. But I had one. Just take it like this. Imagine, and then macro it. So this micro one shift. I saw 9 miscarriages in one shift, and I was asking the question, "Did you take the shots? Did you take the shots?" It was so bad at one point that I had to have someone come and clean up the chairs and everything in the ER because the blood was just extensive, just copious amounts of bleeding. Um, I've seen more miscarriages since the rollout of this shot than I've ever seen before in my entire since 1997 career.
What was their answer to the question if they had the shot? I'm guessing here, but
Yes, yes, yes,
yes.
yes. Yeah, they yeah, yeah. No, it was they either within weeks to there's I've also had instances where I've asked and the lady didn't take the shot but the husband did, and I've been writing those down as well, because I'm curious, like, if the husband took it and they didn't, does that correlate with the miscarriage? I don't know. And sadly, they're not studying this stuff. Like that's not going to be studied.
Oh no, one person
Um,
was Harry, Professor Arne Burkhardt, the pathologist, and he was looking at semen, and he was seeing that the spike protein was in semen of vaccinated males. He was also doing post-mortem analysis of brains, hearts, and testicles of sudden deaths, and was finding when he stained it with immunohistochemistry for spike protein that these brains, hearts, and testicles lit up. Well, they didn't light up; they went brown with the stain, but showing that the tissues were infiltrated. And it was the same with semen. Full, well, zero semen, sperm, but and I've seen loads of azoospermias, which is firing literal blanks, not a single functioning sperm in young men. One thing they've got in common, they've had the jab. But the obstetric thing is one of the most evil for me and kids. Are you seeing lots of any kids? Just to touch on that before we end, that you've seen things in pregnancy that are quite blatant. Have you seen? Are you called out to more pediatric emergencies now, or not?
Lots. I've seen everything from young kids playing kickball having strokes, sudden cardiac arrests, sudden. Now here's how bad it is. Used to, prior to the shots rolling out, if a kid called with chest pain, you would think you know
Nothing.
anything, yeah, nothing. Like it's probably just the kid might have pneumonia. But you know what I mean? Like it wasn't. Now I'm doing it at 12 lead. I'm doing an EKG on everyone because I look at kids now like I used to look at 50-year-olds. If you're calling with chest pain, you could be really having a massive MI.
Yeah. I'm the same. When I see a kid with chest pain, you just think musculoskeletal or nothing benign, whatever, costochondritis. But there's this whole massive shift towards pathology in younger and younger people. My last ever day in GP, but for a couple of recent locums, I saw a couple of 30-year-olds with one had gastric cancer. One had bilateral breast cancer, 31-year-old, and they both had three jabs. And you don't see gastric cancer in those people, and you don't see bilateral breast cancer very often at all. So these never events keep happening. And as I keep mentioning, these cases of coincidence-itis, people keep saying rare. It's only rare. We gave out all these billions of jabs, but rare is not rare if it keeps on happening. Fact of the
No,
matter.
no. The sad part is if they were going to actually be completely honest and give real consent, they would say instead of saying, hold on, instead of saying rare cases, what it should actually say is does cause rare shit to happen all the time. Like things that used to be rare, now it's just not rare anymore. But it used to be actual rare stuff, like an aortic dissection of a 21-year-old that's walking through our doors. I've seen that. Like I've seen more aortic dissections since the rollout of these shots, especially in younger age groups. Like this one kid came in, they dismissed him. They came in again, like came in 3 times in the same day into the ER, and they kept dismissing him. And I was having a conversation. I was like, "Did you take the shots?" "Yes, I did." To Pfizer, da da da, or having the conversation, and then they dismissed him again. I even went to the doc and I was like, "Hey, could be something real. I mean, the EKG is not showing anything crazy, but it could be something real." And the doctor was like, "We're just really busy, da da da." And the kid died, walked out of our ER and died in the bay. A huge aortic dissection. Like, I mean, I've seen enough shit at this point, man.
Again,
Like,
it's not
like
like
it's
there's
good.
not doctors speaking out. Again, you've got Ryan Cole in America, who's a pathologist, doesn't he? And he spoke about aortic dissections and this kind of separation of the layers of the aortic arch and causing this, retrograde flow of blood, tamponading hearts. And, it's not like doctors aren't speaking out, but they're just censored, as we talked about. Any dissenter gets censored. So we can't get the truth out if we can't speak, or we're shackled, or we're petrified. And that's what I get every day. I don't know what your inbox is like, Harry, but today I've had a particularly heavy day of compliments, number one, which has been quite nice, but also doctors, nurses, paramedics saying how I've got balls of steel, I'm brave, etc. No, I'm not. I'm none of the above. Yeah, okay, I'm brave, but I'm doing my job. You're doing your job. You signed up. What when you did your paramedic training, you had an interview and they said, "Why did you want to be a paramedic?" I had one at med school. Why do you want to be a doctor? And the answer was, I want to help patients. I want to make my patients care the center of everything I do in a
Yeah.
holistic way. And I've had to remind the GMC recently that I am actually following their guidance to the letter. It's quite a strange scenario, but I think if you're ready to go and have, what time is it your place now?
I don't know what time it is. It is. Oh, I can't see my clock. What time is it where you are?
8:15.
Okay, yeah, it's probably like 2:20, then a quarter past 8. So yes, 2:25.
Yeah. No, like I say, I normally keep to an hour, but just especially for the mutton crew, we've just gone on for another 15 minutes. So
Good. Hey, it's because we love all of y'all, and honestly, I hope y'all change your minds and repent. To repent is to actually change your mind. I hope you all repent because y'all are doing something right now, and I'm talking directly to the mutton crew. Y'all are doing something right now that is it shows that you're willing to fight for your cause, but your cause sadly isn't right. And I think some of y'all know it. And I truly hope that you change sides and start helping some of us that are fighting to try to actually save people because we could use your stamina because y'all are all on my page like it's going out of style. So if you want to change sides, I welcome it. Like, we could use the help because a lot of kids need it. We need it. We need people fighting for humanity.
no, that's a really good way of ending because normally I ask guests to say what they'd do to encourage doctors to speak out or members of the public, but that was perfect. Without me asking, you've pitched how to pitch for some help from the mutton crew. So, Harry, thank you ever so much for your time, and I'm sure this is going to go down really well, this interview. And God bless you for all you do, and keep doing it. I love your content. Please do follow him on Twitter. It's a really funny. It's not funny because what you're saying isn't funny, but you shoot from the hip. You don't care. You're at that point where you want to fight for humanity at all costs. So definitely worth
Amen.
follow.
Well,
All
thank
right,
you,
then,
brother.
guys.
God
Take
bless
care.
you too, man.
Take care. Bye bye.